Hey everybody, welcome back to the Slasher Uprising channel, the home of the slasher movie. You have probably already gotten to see my top 25 favorite standalone slasher movie video. If not, be sure to check that one out. But now it's time for recommendations. This is going to be 25 standalone slasher movie recommendations for 2025 in no particular order. I hope you enjoy the video. First up, we have Hard Eyes, released in 2025. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. As Valentine's Day approaches and love is in the air, couples come together to celebrate this joyous occasion. But the vengeful Hard Eyes killer isn't having it. Hard Eyes begins to stalk and murder romantic couples in the most violent and gruesome ways imaginable. Allie, who is in advertisement, seems like an unlikely candidate because she has recently broken up with her boyfriend. He had no problem moving on from Allie, but on Valentine's Day, anything is possible, and Allie might have just met the perfect guy in Jay. Unfortunately for her, Hard Eyes witnesses their romantic interaction. Some people would do anything for love. Jay and Allie might just die for it. Next up, we have It's a Wonderful Knife, released in 2023. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets to kill. This one takes place in Angel Falls, and it's the ideal setting for a wonderful Christmas holiday. Unfortunately, there's an angelic-looking killer on the prowl. When Winnie Carruthers comes face to face with a psychotic killer, she is able to put an end to his reign of terror. But the damage has already been done, and 1 year later, Winnie is feeling pretty down and her life is not so wonderful. While gazing into the aurora lights, she wishes she had never been born. Wish granted. Now in a parallel universe where nobody knows who she is, she soon discovers that the killer is back.
You be safe now.
Next up, we have Graduation Day, released in 1981. After an unfortunate fatal accident occurs, when a track team star collapses and falls to their death on the track, with 7 days left to graduation day, the seniors are being stalked and murdered in mysterious ways. And I absolutely love how the murders all have to do with sports. It's very unique and makes the movie fun. The movie has some fun and entertaining kills. The class of 1981 is being fitted for caps and gowns and coffins. Graduation Day is a comfort zone movie for me, and it's one that I will always come back to. Next up, we have Sweet 16, released in 1983.
You guys ever play with girls or just yourselves?
Melissa is the pretty new girl in town. As she approaches her 16th birthday, violence and murder is all around her, as the teenage boys she is associated with all end up dead. But who's the killer? That is the question that the small town sheriff is trying to answer in this murder mystery. The movie does a great job of setting up misdirection for the identity of the killer. The first time I watched this movie, I wasn't able to guess who the killer was, and that's pretty cool. Next up, we have Requiem for a Scream, released in 2022. In this one, we follow Artemis, who is a singer who, along with her friends, go to a secluded house in the woods for a weekend getaway in honor of her sister Emily, who recently passed away. Unfortunately for them, a sadistic killer stalks the premises, who uses the screams of his victims in his twisted symphony. The screams of human suffering is like music to his ears.
Human suffering is music to my ear.
Next up, we have Deep Red, released in 1975. Screams of agony cry out into the night as a psychic is brutally murdered. A pianist is nearby and rushes to her aid, but ultimately is too late to save her. The images of the grisly scene keeps playing over and over in his mind, and he becomes determined to put the clues together and solve this mysterious murder. Each lead he follows ends in another murder, because the killer is one step ahead of him.
I saw the face of the murderer.
Next up, we have Uncle Sam, released in 1996. A Desert Storm vet named Sam is killed by friendly fire during combat. His body is returned home, where he will receive a proper military burial service. Sam was unliked in life by pretty much everybody, including his sister, because of his aggressive and violent nature. Sam is idolized by his young nephew, who wants to be just like Sam when he grows up. After teens burn an American flag over his burial site on the 4th of July, Sam returns from the grave with vengeance and starts killing the unpatriotic citizens of his hometown. Next up, we have Cherry Falls, released in 1999. Lose your innocence or lose your life. Dark secrets from the past have returned to haunt the present in this sexually charged slasher. After a series of murders, the local police determined one common theme amongst the victims. They were all virgins. So in the town of Cherry Falls, virgins are being murdered. So the high school students have decided to take themselves off the killer's menu.
You want your first time to be something beautiful, something romantic.
Next up, we have Time Cut, released in 2024. This murder is set on repeat. In this one, we follow Lucy, who is a high school student with a promising future. Unfortunately, Lucy's sister Summer was murdered in 2003 before Lucy was born, and her parents have never gotten over it. Of course, that's understandable, but Lucy feels invisible during her interactions with her parents. By complete random chance, Lucy stumbles upon a time machine and travels back to the past in 2003, just before the murders that plagued the town begin to take place, giving Lucy the opportunity to not only save her sister, but anyone else she can. But of course, the killer has other plans. Next up, we have Charlie's Farm, released in 2014.
Rumor has it they had a son called Charlie.
The legend of Charlie's Farm refuses to die. A group of friends set out into Australia's outback looking to explore Charlie's Farm, and it's rumored to be a dark and evil place. And sure enough, not long after their arrival, they come face to face with Charlie, a huge monster of a man who carries a large machete. This movie has some fun and over-the-top kills. This is most definitely my kind of slasher movie. Next up, we have Tourist Trap, released in 1979. Every year, young people disappear. In this one, we have a group of young travelers who have car trouble and end up stranded at a secluded roadside museum. They meet the owner of the museum, who seems innocent enough at first, but they will soon discover that he is an odd, lonely man, a very disturbed individual who uses telekinetic powers to animate mannequins, in which he uses to keep himself company. Next up, we have Slash, released in 2002. It's harvest time. Where blood is sown, evil is grown. In this one, we have the band Slash, who is on the verge of stardom. But when lead singer Joseph McDonald must return home to the family farm for a funeral, the band decides to stick together and join him in his time of need. And now, when dark family secrets are revealed, it's time for the harvest of blood to begin. This one features one of my all-time favorite scarecrow killers. Next up, we have Happy Birthday to Me, released in 1981. In this one, we follow Virginia, who suffers from memory loss and blackouts after having survived a deadly accident that occurred on or around her birthday. Now Virginia is trying to put her life back together. She is one of the top 10 best students in school, all in which are her friends, who she has invited to her birthday party. But her friends are being stalked and murdered in gruesome ways, and there might not be anybody left to attend her 18th birthday party. You have been invited to the bloodiest birthday party of the year. Next up, we have Christmas Bloody Christmas, released in 2022. In this one, we follow Tori, who is the owner of a record store. On Christmas Eve, she decides to hang out with her employee Robbie and do some binge drinking after closing the store. Unfortunately, their night is about to be interrupted because at a nearby toy store, a animatronic robot Santa starts to malfunction and begins to murder anyone in his path. and it looks like Tori and Robbie have made the naughty list. Next up, we have Popcorn, released in 1991. Buy a bag, go home in a box. Maggie and her friends, who are college students, decide to put on an all-night horror movie marathon at an abandoned theater. But there's a deranged killer locked in with them who just so happens to be a master of disguise. Maggie believes it to be a crazed filmmaker who killed his family live on stage 15 years prior. Whoever the killer is, they seem to have a close connection to Maggie. Next up, we have Torso, released in 1973. In this one, we have a sex maniac who is murdering college co-eds. Jane and her friends decide to get away for a while by heading out to a villa that's out in the country. Soon they discover that they are far from having left the terror behind them, they've brought it with them. The killer has followed them. A psychosexual killer is on the loose. Next up, we have Most Likely to Die, released in 2015. It's going to be One Killer Reunion. On the night before their 10-year high school reunion celebration, a group of former high school friends get together for a weekend of fun and reminiscing. But the past is about to catch up with them, because not all memories are good. A killer seeking revenge for a yearbook prank stalks the group and murders them in fitting ways based off their yearbook superlatives. Next up, we have New Year's Evil, released in 1980. In this one, a popular late-night radio DJ named Diane Blaze Sullivan hosts a New Year's Eve countdown celebration of music and partying. She soon begins to receive strange calls from a mysterious person who refers to himself as evil.
Call me evil.
He tells Diane that he plans to off someone at midnight during each of America's major time zones, and that she will be the last.
I'm going to commit murder at midnight.
Next up, we have Open 24 Hours, released in 2018. Pray you never run out of gas. In this one, we follow Mary, who takes a job at a gas station that's open 24 hours.
Dear gas market, this is Mary.
Do you like watching people die?
She takes the graveyard shift. She's trying to put her life back together after being released from prison for setting her ex-boyfriend on fire. Yes, he deserved it, because he was a serial killer who forced Mary to watch when he would torture and murder his victims. So Mary has been through a traumatic ordeal, and sometimes the line between illusion and reality blurs. On her first night back at work, there comes a downpour outside, setting the mood for her boyfriend's return. Next up, we have Killer Book Club, released in 2023. In this one, we have a group of friends who are a part of a horror-themed book club.
The wild man, emo, influencer, the librarian, the babe, the heroine, and the simp.
When one of the girls is assaulted by a teacher, the group retaliates and dress up as clowns to scare the teacher. The prank ends in tragedy, and now they are being stalked and murdered by someone who wears the same clown costume. The killer is writing their own novel, and as each person dies, they become a part of the book that the killer is posting online. Next up, we have Halloween Night, released in 2006. The movie opens up on Halloween night at the Vale residence, and they are the victims of a home invasion. Young Christopher Vale witnesses his mother's murder, and he himself ends up badly burned and disfigured for life. 10 years later, on Halloween night, he escapes a mental hospital and returns home only to find that a group of friends are hosting a medieval-themed Halloween party in his house. He puts on an executioner's costume and begins murdering the partygoers. Next up, we have The Initiation, released in 1984. Tonight, new blood will be pledged. In this one, we follow college student Kelly Fairchild, who is haunted by a reoccurring nightmare where a man is burning. A teacher's assistant agrees to help Kelly. She undergoes tests and hopes to better understand her dreams. She pledges to a sorority that forces the new recruits to perform a prank that involves them breaking into Kelly's father's multi-level department store. Once inside, a madman begins killing her pledged sisters one by one. Next up, we have hashtag All My Friends Are Dead, released in 2024. In this one, we have a group of influencer friends that are heading to Karmapalooza, the biggest music festival of the year.
And guess what? I'm going to Karmapalooza, baby! Shut the fuck up!
Along the way, they have car trouble and end up renting an Airbnb and set in on a night of partying. Each member of the group are associated by one of the 7 deadly sins based off their personality. Unfortunately for them, the past has caught up with them and the group is being stalked and murdered in gruesome ways based off the 7 deadly sins. Next up, we have You Might Be the Killer, released in 2018. It's summer camp, what did you expect? In this one, we follow Sam, who is a camp counselor who is suffering from blackouts. After arriving at the camp and settling in, the counselors tell scary stories for fun. Sam tells the story of the property in which a man made a cursed wooden mask that was filled with evil power that made him kill people. After a scavenger hunt, the cursed mask is found. After some playful interactions with the mask, the mysterious killer appears and starts brutally murdering the camp counselors. Terrified and panicked, Sam calls his best friend Chuck, who is an expert on all things horror. Next up, we have Totally Killer, released in 2023. In this one, we follow Jamie, who has a overprotective mother, and rightfully so, because 35 years earlier, both of her parents survived the Sweet 16 killer. Now, on Halloween night, Jamie is chased by the masked maniac, in which she tries to hide in a time machine that was created for a science fair project. When it's accidentally activated, Jamie is sent back to 1987. She then desperately tries to prevent the original murders. The past and the present are about to collide in this hilarious comedy slasher. Murder is so 1987.
Just so you know, I don't do blowjobs. You pee out of that thing.
Just think, maybe if she did do blowjobs, she'd still be alive.
Yeah, let's not make that the lesson.